All right, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone, to the work session of the Mayor and Council for September 21st. I believe last month I made a comment that I'd like to see fewer public hearings on the agenda, and today I have twice as many as I had last month. So I won't make that request this week because I can't do that next month. But so here's what I want to do with these, though. I'm going to move all of these public hearings to the end of the agenda. We're going to go through the items first that we can possibly put on the consent agenda, and then with the time left, we'll go back and review items that have a public hearing. And what I'll do there is just simply offer an opportunity for council on each item to ask questions if they have any, rather than a presentation. I'll do that in the interest of time. I will also say that item B or A12 will be tabled, so I don't know if anybody's here for that. And also E1. But with that, let me get started. So that means the first person up is going to be Bobby Elliott, which is going to be, am I right? A14, Flowers Bakery Driveway Culvert Design.
B, yes, B.
So we're also going to table A13. Sorry. All right, go ahead, Bobby.
Mr. Mayor, we, as you and the members of council know, Georgia DOT is committed 70% of the funding necessary to repair the damaged culvert at the Flowers Bakery entrance. I've reached out to Georgia and West Engineers. John Bass is the president. John has given us a price quote to do this design. This design is a little unique in the fact that whatever is done at that entrance, we have to keep Flowers Bakery in business. And I know John has done that type thing before. We really trust his judgment and his work quality on his design. I did not reach out to anybody else as far as a quote. But that being said, he has quoted us a figure of $17,850 to do the design on the fix. We recommend approval.
So, Bobby, what this is the design, and then
Yes.
the contractor would actually be the one who would do the work, and you'd bring that back to us before you do the work.
Oh, yes, sir.
So, because then we'll get the amount for the actual construction, and that's when we'll address the need to maintain access on that road. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Council, does anybody have any questions? All right, if there are no questions, I'll make this consent item 1 if there are no objections.
No objection.
No objection.
All right, thank you, Bobby. That's easy. All right, Nick, you're up. Bathroom renovations at Gold Dust Park. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. This is actually in addition to the work that you guys have already approved for Gold Dust. Sorry. We didn't know if we'd have enough money in the budget that was in the capital line for the senior side bathrooms. But after receiving the bids and getting y'all's approval, we actually do. So this is what I'm bringing to you today. PV Enterprises is already engaged to renovate the bathrooms on the Gold Dust side, and we would like him to also renovate the bathrooms in the same way on the senior side.
All right, council, any questions? If there are no objections, I'll make that consent item number 2.
No objection.
Thank you, Nick. All right, Yvette, C1, library after-hours meeting room use and fee schedule. This item's been tabled twice before. Would you introduce this item, please?
Yes, this is for library meeting room use for up to 2 hours on working days that the library is open, for a recovery fee of $30 per hour after the normal library closing hours. The $30 will cover any overtime that staff would be required to have. We've gone through the process with West Georgia Regional Library System. The front of the application is actually their application. The back is the stipulation just for the Billerica after hours. And so they've been with us step by step. We changed one word. We took the rate off of the top of the grid at the back page and put it as recovery fee other than usage fee. So that way it doesn't look as if we're doing anything for profit. It is just to cover the staff that's there.
I understand. All right, has David looked at this?
As far as I know, yes.
Well, he's not here to answer.
Okay.
Do you think he has?
I believe he has. He looked at the first one. That's the only thing we changed was the wording.
He did? All right, I'm good with that. Council, do you have any questions? All right, if there are no, go ahead, Mr. Young.
I noticed that if you're not a nonprofit, somebody in that organization needs to be a member of the library.
Yes, we're trying to get more people to use the library, and they need to be in good standing in order to use the room.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? All right, if there are no other questions, I'll make that consent number 3 without objection.
No objection.
Okay, let's move on to Jim. D1, reconfiguration and upgrade of network infrastructure. Go ahead, Jim.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. The first is to give us tighter security, implementing switches in various locations where we don't have our own switches at now. We're using basically piggybacking off St. Global's. This will give us better visibility to tighten up the network. Like if somebody plugs in a wireless modem or router, I have no way of knowing it right now unless I just happen to physically see it on the network, and that can give, you name it, a number of people wireless access to our network. If that were to happen, I have found it physically a couple of times in the past. So this would give us the availability to be able to see anything that's plugged into the network in real time, and also to be able to implement guest networks. Like we don't have a guest network here now. The only place we have it is Powell Park because we do have our own switches, our own infrastructure in place over there. This is just to basically bring the other places up to speed that we've been planning on doing this for. We've been planning this for about 18 months now. We're finally ready to pull the trigger on it.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions for Jim?
Just one.
Go ahead,
You'll be
Mr.
able to
Carter.
see them when they come online. Will you be able to shut them off if you want to get them offline?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll have full port control, whereas right now I do not have full port control.
All right. Any other questions? All right. If there are no additional questions, I will make that consent item number 4 without objection.
No objection.
All right, Jim, also D2, network room cleanup and network cable recertification at the police department and the courtroom. Go ahead.
What we have over in the PD in their main telco closet is a monstrosity of a telco cabinet. I've never seen one like it before. I hope to never see one like it again. And all of our cables that are pulled through there, they're going to have to basically be cut and re-terminated, and we're going to have to take a sawzall to get this thing out of that room. I mean, it's massive. But also a lot of the cables that we do have already currently running through there, we're finding the network degradation is really high. So we're wanting to recertify, re-cable everything, and just get that out of there and all the equipment out of there as well.
So could you use that word again?
Which one?
Describe that room for me.
It's a nightmare.
It started with an M, though.
Yeah, monstrosity.
I mean, I didn't know if you had written that down to
No, it's huge.
for emphasis.
I've never seen a network cabinet like this.
All right, this is at a cost of $9,500.
And that's most of that cost is to recertify all the lines again.
All right, council, do you have any questions?
Where's the room located?
Over there by Captain Parker's office.
All right, Mr. Young.
Jim, this says the courtroom, and
Because our lines that come into here, they feed through there. That's our main hub.
and it mentions 1 gig speed. Does that mean the speed in here is going to go up?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, that is also a plus. All right, Mr. Montan?
I was just saying, so it might actually work.
It might have.
Well, the hidden benefit also there is that will allow us to turn up the line of sight link between here and Avanti. So then we can turn down the St. Global annual bill or the monthly bill that we're getting from St. Global to Avanti, and we can just manage that ourselves.
Okay, well, that's even
So
better.
we'll get some other costs that we're going to recoup as well.
I'm still struggling to get this one on right now. All right, are there any other questions? All right, if none, I'll make this consent item 5 without objection.
No objection.
All right, thank you, Jim. Let's move on to, so on E1, we're going to also table that item again for like the 17th time. At some point, we may decide to take it off the agenda, but right now, you just want to keep riding with it? It just seems fun? Okay. All right. E2, Pete, this is ratification of emergency purchase of supervisory control and data acquisition, SCADA system for the water plant. Go ahead.
That's correct. We had ongoing problems with this SCADA system. When Woodard and Kern was here, they actually put this SCADA system on the plant operation controls. And it's obsolete at this point. It had been crashing like every couple of hours. Jim has come and tried to restore it. And we finally got an emergency situation where we just had to replace it. So John Zile was the original integrator with J.K. Durham with our SCADA system. And he came out and he did the conversion. So now it's merged both SCADA systems with the J.K. Durham system, and the old Woodard and Kern system is one compatible system instead of two separate ones.
Yeah, I've been hearing about this for a while, so I'm glad we're actually doing it. But who put that amount up there? I can't read it. My system's still not up, and there's a glare right across
It's got
the
0.00.
screen. How many zeros is in that?
Pardon me, that was my mistake.
Well, what is the amount?
It's $16,896.
Okay, all
I
right.
should have proofread.
I didn't know if we were gonna have to take out a loan. Nobody
No.
Nobody had told me about that. All right. Any questions for Pete? All right. If there are no questions, then I'll make this consent item number 6 without objection.
No objection.
All right. Pete, let's go on to 3, E3, replacement of the Lake Cowan number 2 raw water pump. Go ahead.
Yes, sir, that pump has been damaged, seal failure, water intrusion that damaged the stator and the electrical windings of the motor. It's not cost effective to rebuild it. The rebuild price came in at $8,800, and we can buy a brand new unit for $10,500.
Wow. Okay. All right. Any questions? Okay. If there are no questions, I'll make this consent number 7 without objection.
No objection.
All right. Number tab E4, concrete removal at the old West plant. Go ahead.
Okay, when we constructed the storage building at the old West Plant site, while we had the contractor on site, we asked them to remove the existing concrete that was in the old drying bed location at the old West Plant. So basically, they pulled it all up. The idea is to reclaim that footprint for future use. And when they pulled it up, of course, it's large chunks of concrete with rebar in it. We thought that we had someone that was willing to take this, but with the amount of rebar that's in it, we just need to get it hauled off to be able to use that space. And back in the day, I guess the decision was made that when they demoed the old plant, they pretty much demoed it on site. So this is some material that wasn't demoed at the time, but still needed to be removed. So now, hence, we have to haul it off.
So I had asked about why we couldn't separate the rebar from the concrete and then recycle the rebar. But my understanding is there's just too much of it.
Too much, yes.
Is that how that goes?
Yes, we did, when we did the original demo where we put the new storage building, some of that concrete, we were successful enough to get some of the rebar out of it, but this is just
Just wouldn't
too
be
much.
cost effective.
Yes, sir.
Too much of it. Okay, council, any questions?
You
for
just
Pete?
answered my question. That was the one I had from, I think all your items was as far as it being recyclable,
Okay.
reused, whatever.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, if there are no questions, I will make this consent number 8 without objection.
No objection.
Thank you,
Thank
Pete.
you.
All right. Let's see if I'm ready for this one. All right, let's go ahead to finance F1. Jennifer, come on. Oh, she's already there. Request approval of a 3-year proposal from Malden and Jenkins LLC to provide external audit and single audit services for fiscal years 21 through 23. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. As you know, we are required to have an external audit every year. We have used Malden and Jenkins since our fiscal year 2015. So what we're asking this year is to continue the service with them for 21, 22, and 23. I have reached out to them because of the length of time that we've had them. If changing partners to have a fresh set of eyes would be good. And James is the one who normally brings the presentation and oversees the audit. And they're going to put someone else in charge if y'all approve this proposal.
Okay, now, is James the fellow with all the hair?
Is that a trick question?
Well, just trying to put a face with a name. I think it is. And I had asked Tom if it was time to maybe look at somebody else, because we had had these same folks for a while, and what his response to me was, well, they are the best. So that felt like a no. And so that's where we're at with that. Council, do you have any questions? Mr.
Yeah.
Carter?
How does this compare to the past? I noticed that each year is going up $1,000.
You know, we were able to get a better pricing because, matter of fact, the city manager had requested that we try to see if we could get better pricing for doing a 3-year proposal versus just an annual. One thing that is different than in previous years that y'all just had this past year is a single audit. That is when we receive federal funds over $750,000, and because of the CARES funding, we now are required to have a single audit, so that's an additional cost. They did come in with a higher price, and I went back and negotiated and said, wait a minute, if we're going to be using that CARES funding, or it's planned on using that CARES funding for one project versus maybe some entities are just slicing and dicing and sending places, would that help y'all scope if the single audit? And they said yes. So they did come down on the price. So I would say it's relatively flat of what it's been in the past couple of years.
What did we pay this last time around?
$31,500. And that included the single audit.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Ms. McPherson.
So just to clarify, we're going to stay with them. I never think they should think that we're locked in, though, right? Because I know every now and then it's a good time to change. They may be the best, so maybe that's where we need to be. But what we're doing is we're going to have someone else there in the company do it for us, fresh eyes. I know that was stressed with one of our financial classes over at the GMA convention probably a couple years ago, is that you need to have somebody else looking at it every now and then. So you feel comfortable with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you.
One
Mr.
other,
Carter?
are there other outfits out there that do this kind of work?
There are, but they are limited. And Malden and Jenkins is like the biggest. They offer a lot of the training. They're really well known in the industry. But yes, there are others.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. I appreciate that they have a good reputation. They're a large organization, and that they'll have a different person assigned to this one to take a look at a new one. That feels transparent to me. So without objection, I will make this consent number 9.
No objection.
All right. F2, Jennifer, proposed fiscal year 22 operating and capital budget.
Okay, I don't really have a presentation. We just decided that we would put it on the work session just in case there were any questions, need clarifications.
Okay.
This is not a public hearing. We've already had those. We just wanted to be able to make sure that the council didn't have any more questions.
Okay, and I will hold this over to the regular meeting, so we will not make this a consent item. However, council, does anyone have any questions for Jennifer in the work session? Okay, if there are no questions, we will carry this over to the regular agenda, okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. All right, let's move on to tab G. The deputy city manager now has her own tab. So come on down, G1, approve additional services with Paycom. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Paycom is our payroll service provider. We started with them, we started last year, but we went live in January of this year. And so far, Tiffany and I had a utilization conversation with their, customer service rep recently, and he showed us our numbers, and so far I would say it's been pretty effective as far as getting the employees to utilize it. So one thing we went over are some of the other functions that they offer that we aren't paying for right now. They're listed right there in the background section. The first one is geofencing, and I think we thought we got this when we purchased the product. However, this Paycom is very employee user focused. So we need the employees to be able to log in on the app to look at things because we're communicating through that, and they're also verifying their time and all that. A lot of them are using their phone. There is a clock-in function on the phone, and the way to protect the city in that is to have a geo-fence around that so that there's only a certain geographic area that they can actually clock in and clock out. Next is surveys. So in the budget is about $6,500, I believe, for a employee satisfaction survey that we'd like to do in maybe 3 or 4 months. And I still want to pursue that. However, Paycom does offer other options for surveys, and Tiffany and I have talked about that and think this would be a great possibility for, I don't know, different types of surveys, maybe smaller scale, that we could send out to the employees as needed, maybe for certain satisfaction things that we want to talk to them about, or even exit interviews. We'd like to do those in person, but it would also be great to have a set group of questions that we ask every person that leaves the city. And also we could use it even, what does everybody want for the next employee luncheon? So it could be as casual as that. I just think that would be a great tool for us. And lastly is soft skills for leadership and managers. So one thing that we took on with Paycom is performance management and learning. So they already have some classes built in that we can offer to the employees. However, an upgrade for that is soft skills for leaders and managers. So that would be improving their Excel skills, improving how to run a meeting, dealing with difficult employees and things. So those 3 things are 95 cents per person per payroll. So it adds up to about $4,300 for each year.
Well, let me ask you this. Are these 3 items that you could separate out and take 1 or 2 or 3, and how does it affect pricing if you did that?
I want to say the soft skills is separate, but he priced us geofencing and the surveys together.
The geofencing, would you be able to exempt employees from the geofencing? I'm thinking about a person who might be on call, and they might actually clock in from their home if they have to leave from there to go to, some work site.
And, and there are certain situations where people are going straight to training and not not coming to the office first. And we could deal with those. I think that's going to be a limited basis, but
It would be, but are you allowed to exempt that out, or is that something you'd have to go back and manually?
I'd have to look. But part of the Paycom system is if there's an error or if they need a change, the employee initiates it from their phone, basically from the app, asking the manager to approve a change. And so something like that could be done that way.
So I feel like I really like the geofencing piece of that, especially as people, move and transition so much to their phones. And I do worry about people being able to take advantage of it. But I
Right.
do think that we have to make sure we account for those situations.
Sure.
It's not just going to be training. Some people have that on a regular basis. I'm not all that excited about the other 2, but if you said to me, well, they sort of come this way, then I feel a little better about it. Council, do you have any questions? Mr. Carter?
Do we have a contract? We don't have a contract with Paycom now, do we?
We do.
We do? Okay, I'm seeing you're paying them an extra amount for the last 2 weeks. I assume the $166 for this fiscal year since it ends end of this month.
Right, if it went live, if y'all approved it today, then we would pick it up at the next payroll. We have one more payroll this fiscal year. So it'd be $166 per payroll, and we have one more payroll to hit in September. So that's why I put $166 for this fiscal
Because the
year.
new budget starts on October 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's just that partial, that's a prorated amount for just one single payroll.
If we had them on a contract, I thought we would already have covered that.
This is just to add these additional services. So if y'all approve it tonight and I go back to them and say we'd like to go ahead and start these, then at the next payroll in September, they would charge us that extra 95 cents
Oh, okay.
per check per person.
And I believe that when this was introduced to us last year, that we heard about this geofencing then. And are you sure that it did not come with so maybe it was talked about as an add-on that we just didn't pick up?
I'm
Does
thinking.
that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Ms. McPherson?
Yeah, I like the geofencing for the accountability. On the other 2, I can see where those surveys might be useful, and I guess as far as listening to y'all explain it, if it's helpful and useful to you in getting that information, I'd be okay with that. Soft skills for leadership and managers, I imagine some of that's going on to a degree anyway. I think I'm okay with deferring to you guys.
So there
that.
are other services that offer those types of courses, which I know we've sent people off to for different things. What Fred Pryor, that's one who does a lot of these types of trainings, and I would say it's probably $100 per course, whereas this, we would have access to it for 95 cents per person per check. So I'd say we'd have some cost savings there. You can also, you can assign, so we could talk to the department heads, talk to the managers as to which classes the department heads would want, and maybe which ones the managers would want themselves. But you can assign a person an individual course, but you can also set up paths. So if we have, a certain type of level manager that we want to take this path, then we could set up a whole semester basically of courses that we want them to take.
And this one is just for managers, leadership positions. It's not all the employees, so you'd only be charged for those people, correct?
We would have access to this for everybody. So they're going to charge us per person. So that's looking at they're going to charge it to us for everybody. Anybody could take it. So if we have people aspiring to get there, then, they'd be welcome to take these classes too.
All right, anybody else? Mr. Young?
And the survey and the leadership courses are access to the employee self-service portal, just like everything else.
Yes.
So it's not on their phone, it's through a regular web connection.
Either way, yes.
Okay.
All right, anybody else?
Yeah, one more, just
Ms.
because of
McPherson.
that. Okay, so if they're to take these on their own, where's the accountability in, yes, I took this, here's the feedback, here's, I wasn't watching TV while this was going on over here, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's not what I expect most people to do, but let's be honest, it happens, so.
They showed us where there are quizzes, so I don't know if there's a quiz assigned to each course or if that's something we can add on. But that is part of the program with the learning function of Paycom. There is some accountability. There are quizzes, and we have the ability to even add quizzes ourselves. So that might be something we need to look at.
Click to show you're still here.
Right.
Miss
I'm sorry.
Marchman?
Have you already started this? I've been getting something on my phone by the Paycom, and I didn't know what it was, so I just deleted it.
Yes, that didn't have anything to do with this. That was an annual disclosure we're required to send out.
Okay. All right.
Don't delete it.
I did.
All
I
right,
hadn't heard of it, so I didn't know. I just
Mr. Young,
I'm good.
you're good now? Okay, he also deleted his.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one.
So
Still there.
you got the cover on that one.
Right here.
Okay, if there are, yeah, mine's still in there too. If there are no objections, I'll make this consent 10.
No objection.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Now we're moving on to
No, the budget was not.
Madam Clerk. Let me do this.
Oh, that's rude.
It's the only chance I've got to do that with her in 2 years. Okay, let's move on to Mr. Happy, the city manager. H1, approval of second phase of professional services agreement with Gilbert, Harrell, Summerford, and Martin Law Firm. Go ahead.
Earlier in the year, council approved an engagement with this law firm to acquire the services of Judd Turner to help us with some of our water sourcing negotiations. That has turned out to be very, very, very effective. We have completed that phase of the engagement. He has given us a proposal for 6 additional months, which I expect to be equally productive. I have found him to have the access that I needed and anticipated. He's been able to get in and talk to anybody in the business pretty much that we've needed. He has not only been productive, but I suspect that he understands what it is that he's trying to do for us better than I do, honestly, after watching him operate. He was the EPD director. He's been involved in all the permitting of all the water systems in the state during his time. He knows all the players. He has on our behalf already gone down to EPD headquarters, been able to walk in and meet with people who we would not have access to present our case, and so I'm recommending that that you authorize us to do 6 more months with Judd, and then we'll evaluate again and see where we are.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm not gonna try to give out Judd's resume, but I can tell you that he has a intimate knowledge of the challenges that we face here and the folks that we are having to deal with in a way that even we don't have, because we don't have the institutional knowledge here. So when I first looked at this, I wondered if we were getting enough out of it, but realizing who it was, once I found out who this was, because I didn't recognize the law firm, I realized that this is something that we must continue on because this is just that important. Council, do you have any questions on this item? All right, if there are no questions, I'll make this consent number 11 without objection.
No objection.
All right, Tom, H2, Three Rivers Commission Area Agency on Aging Contract for Services for fiscal year 2023. Go ahead.
If you'll recall, back in February, I brought this to you late. This is a July 1 renewal on our meal reimbursement with Three Rivers for the senior meal program. So if this seems a little current, it's because we did it late last year. We did it in February, I think. And again, it's late. It was I think it was, where did we finally find it? It was somewhere anyway. I don't know if it was in my box or in my office or somewhere, and I finally found it because I realized that it hadn't been done. But this is the contract. If you look through it, a weighty contract that involves grant money that we've taken advantage of for decades, apparently, where we have provided meals on site and delivery, not just in Billerica, but in a delivery area that includes Fairfield and the north end of the county. We've been doing this for a long, long time. I recommend that we continue it right now, but I'd like to see this as one of the subjects that we discuss when we have a winter council retreat.
Okay, your last sentence is probably exactly what I was going to say. We're not in a position to do anything different right now, but this will be, there may be more effective ways to accomplish this that we will discuss later. Council, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Carter?
Well, if we approve this, are we gonna get a lump sum payment for July, August, and September, since those months have already gone by?
We've been getting it as far as I know.
Oh, we have already gotten it?
Do you get it every month, Jennifer?
They're about 2 months behind in arrears, but yes, we do get it.
Okay, all right. Any other questions?
So
Yeah.
they're giving it to us even though we didn't have a contract with them? Oh, good. I like that business.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. McPherson.
Just clarify, isn't this federal funds, but it's distributed down through Three Rivers does? That's why. it
Federal
might-
and state funds.
That might account for being 2 months behind.
All right, anybody else? Okay, if there are no other questions, I'll make this consent number 12
No objection.
without objection. All right, let's move on to H3, set dates for the 2021 cleanup week. Tom?
We recently discussed when we were doing cleanup, and I thought we had already brought this to council, but a couple of years ago, we moved this from the spring to the fall. We were trying to do it after the Keep Carroll Beautiful cleanup event, one of their recycling events. We'd like to do it the week of the 18th of October for that full week, and designate Wednesday as the day that we provide additional help to folks that can't get stuff, off their front porch out to the street, or it's behind the house and they can't get it to the street. Continuing to use a way, have people sign a waiver when we come on their property. Same thing that we've been doing.
Okay. Will we put out a notice in the water bill?
No.
Are we gonna put that on the water bill Sarah, like we've done before?
I don't think we've been doing
We usually print it, there's actually a little note printed on the actual bill.
Yeah, we can do that. We don't do an insert.
No.
Yeah, just a note.
We have done an insert before, but I guess we
Yeah, it's
haven't in a
not-
few years. But I'm talking about the note actually on it, because everybody gets that. And of course, we need to make sure we put it out on social media and all those kinds of things. Okay, yeah, I have no problem with that week either. And I think we definitely should do it. Mr. Carter?
Yeah, you're saying that October the 1st, that's long before the rest of it starts. You designate that as the day to pick up some stuff?
No, he said
Should be the-
Wednesday, the
It
20th.
says on here
Should be the
October 1st.
20th. I don't know
Doesn't
where,
say
I
that?
don't know where October 1 came from.
Oh, I
Okay.
see that.
Should be October 20.
All right.
All right, that needs to
How
be
about down in
corrected.
did I get the motion right?
Yeah, the motion's correct. October 20th, designated as the
Yeah,
day.
okay.
Okay. All right, any other
Batting
questions?
500 there.
All right, if
You know
there,
what?
Miss
It said
Marchman,
the 18th.
the week of
The week of the
18th.
18th and Wednesday the 20th is the
Oh,
special
okay.
day.
That's the date for the extra assistance.
Okay, that's the date I need.
Okay. All right. Glad you was able to get that. Put that on your calendar. All right. If there are no questions, no more questions, then I'll make this consent number 13 without objection.
No objection.
All right. H3, amendment to ordinances for traffic calming. Tom?
I don't have that, so I.
Who has it?
Who put, I don't know. Who put that together? Bobby, do you remember? Well, that doesn't help us any. So,
Okay, he doesn't even have a cover sheet in here.
we talked about this last time, and the specific question had to do with the percentages. Remember about the petition and how high the threshold was? And so this is a revision to that percentage. There was another percentage in the ordinance that we did not change. So the percentage that we're changing is the one that dealt with what portion of the community had to respond positively. And I think we're lowering it to 60. Is that
That's correct. I
is that
see it in
everybody's
here.
recollection?
Well, I'm seeing it in the ordinance.
So that's what we're doing here. But
So
but we're not changing anything else that I remember.
So essentially, what you have here, council, is
Oh, yeah.
the amendment to ordinances for traffic calming as included in the packet, because the amendment's in there. So that would be the motion. Are there any questions on this?
Yes,
Ms. McPherson?
traffic calming has been one of my big issues for years, right? Constant complaints, whether it's in subdivisions or down some of our narrow streets with people, you know, riding them like raceways and that sort of thing. And some of our streets don't even have sidewalks. So I think I'm good with the amount that we're requiring as far as neighborhood buy-in for the street that it's on with the 60%, because I think even David Mecklin mentioned, and maybe someone else too, that the threshold that we had was just not attainable in the vast majority of cases. What I'm still concerned about is the part that has to do with the speed, 85 percentile speed. It would be okay with me if we tabled this, because a couple of things I still want to know. Number one, with the 85th percentile speed, I remember looking at traffic reports and everything from the police department, and you being able to have a lot of vehicles going at a high speed, and it was still, okay, it didn't meet this threshold, but I don't have those numbers with me. So if you live on a street and whatever this percentile is, you still have 40, 50 cars, you know, every 2 days or whatever, going a particular speed. If you lived in that neighborhood, that would be a significant number, especially on certain streets. We're not talking Punkintown. We're talking maybe streets like North Avenue. Dogwood always comes to mind because I still have a traffic study on that from years ago. And the other thing I want to know is this is for it to be citizen initiated. Somebody who lives in that neighborhood has to get the right number of signatures, and it has all these things to go with that. I want to know is what happens when we want to initiate it, if we do a traffic study on a street and it's clear to us that we have a problem, that it can be initiated by us, we don't have these same stipulations, but I just want to know that it's clear that that's an avenue for us. It does not have to be citizen initiated. Obviously, we do a traffic study, we would want to know that, oh, this is some of the more egregious areas that we might want to do something with.
All right. So first off, I have, and I'm sure there'll be no objection to tabling this item. We'll take it over to October, and you can communicate those concerns to David. I will just only hit your second item. Your first one was the 85th percentile, and that's probably worth having David take a look at, because that did make it almost impossible. I mean, it's certainly difficult. But as far as the part two, David did make it clear to us that if the city chose to initiate it, there doesn't need to be a special ordinance for that. Staff just needs to do the proper studies and then make the recommendation through council. So I think that will be answered without an amendment to the ordinance. But your first question, take that up with David, and we'll try to have something better when we come back in October. Madam Clerk, you'll take that over to, okay. And I will, we'll make a motion for that in the regular. Tom?
Sarah pointed out that there is another change in here, and that is the old ordinance required that if the property was jointly owned, that both spouses had to sign.
Both owners.
Both owners, right, and we took that out.
Okay. Mr.
Right.
Young?
I'd also like to point out that we're talking about citizen initiated here. And in section A, it says, all of the property owners in a subdivision, not just a street, but a subdivision, shall be contacted. Now, that may be hard for citizens to contact a non-resident owner that's renting out something, or is only there for 6 months a year because he's off in the cold weather or warm weather somewhere. So I think maybe we want to look at that. If we're saying it takes 80% approval, if we get the 80%, even if somebody wasn't contacted or couldn't be contacted, then we might want to look at the wording for that.
Well, let me just say this. I'd rather hold this up for David, but I would say that it does say in the subdivision or defined service area. So that would be the segment. But let's let David answer those questions when it comes time to actually look at this ordinance. Okay, let's take it to October. All right, we've reached the end of the agenda, so I want to go back now, and I'm going to take up these public hearing items a little differently than I did last month. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through each one, and I'm just going to ask if council has any questions for staff. I'm not going to have staff make a presentation, and we'll just see if there's anything that needs to be brought up here in the work session before we adjourn for a break between this session and the regular session. All right, A1, ABL-08-21, to allow pouring of alcoholic beverages for Taqueria Tapatios LLC, located at 451 West Bankhead Highway, Billerica. Council, do you have any questions for staff? All right, hearing no questions. A2, South Harbor Unit 2A, final plat approval. Council, do you have any questions for staff?
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Bobby,
come on up.
Bobby, in the which item? The last item that shows final plat, South Harbor 2A. In the plat, future Unit 3. I see faint lines in there. Is that actually platted but not part?
Future item 3 on the right hasn't, it's still virgin property. Nothing's been done.
On my screen, I show faint lines in here showing plats. It is not platted.
It is not platted, no, sir.
Okay, so what kind of controls does the city have, or can the city have, when that comes to platting?
Actually, that portion that you're referring to is South Harbor Unit 2B. That is part of the revised Mirror Lake Master Plan.
Okay.
All of those conditions will apply. Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Okay. Let's move on to A3, ALT-02-21, extension of rezoning for Avamore and clarification of the number of senior housing units approved in 2018. Council, do you have any questions for staff?
I have a
Mr.
question.
Moptahan. Ron, come on up.
Ron, come on down. The price is right.
Good afternoon, Councilman.
Good afternoon. So, taking a look at this compared to the 2019 version, I'm just noticing kind of slow modifications to the proposed concept plan that was originally approved. It appears at first blush, this is, there are more, I guess, multifamily units, I guess you would describe them. If you take a look at the Avamore picture, perhaps Madam Clerk can pull that up.
Is it this one here?
Yes, I think so. My version is kind of squeezed and squished, but I do see more kind of these red areas, and I think those are designated as Area C. Yeah, assisted living areas. So I just noticed, it looks to me, when I try to compare it to the zoning book that was approved back in 2019, those were not there. I know he's here, he's going to be here also, in addition to the renewal of the zoning, he's going to be kind of asking for some certainty related to the senior housing portion. So can you kind of like tell us what's going on here, just kind of debrief us?
Sure, absolutely. With my discussions with Jay, and as you indicated in the beginning, there has been some change from time to time. This is just like, as far as the extension is concerned, of course, we did an extension last year. This project was originally proposed and approved in 2018, and then the concept plan booklet in 2019. So we're just basically redoing that all over again annually as we usually do. And the second part of this, inside that Avamore booklet that we approved back in 2019, there was a total number of multifamily units and single-family units that were granted. I believe it was 250 single-family units and 325 multifamily units. And in addition to that, we had areas sectioned off for senior housing, independent living, wellness living, and things of that nature. But we never assigned a unit number maximum for that. So before he gets started on his first phase, and because this is an opportune time because of the extension, he's also asking for a total of 290 senior housing units to be placed on the property. So he's actually quantifying how many that he would need.
And so where does that, like, how does that number compare to what we, looking at his previous concept, what it appeared that he was proposing at the beginning? Is that more or less, or?
Well, we didn't actually have any numbers to compare to.
Okay.
From that time. So he's basically introducing that discussion of how many units can he have. So he's just seeking some sort of clarity tonight.
Okay, because do you mind flipping back to that if you could?
So this plan was actually, this was your original plan that you saw in 2018, but in 2019, the concept plan booklet has superseded this. This is just an original concept plan drawing.
Okay, so this is actually from 2018?
2018, yes.
June of 18.
June of 18.
Okay, so, all right, well, that kind of, so what is he, is his proposal more like what we saw in 2019 or more like this?
Well, he hasn't given any documents as far as what the senior housing would look like or where on the lot it would be located. I haven't seen any site plan or anything of that nature.
Okay.
So I think this might be a chicken and the egg kind of scenario because he wants to know how many units he can put on, but he wouldn't draw it first unless he knows how many units he can put and how many where they can actually go. So.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think that was the confusion here, because I guess I didn't realize that was a 2018. I mean, I was on the council and started the council in 19, so this is, what I saw in the book was my only, that I can recall at least, my only kind of introduction to this project was the 2019 plan. Okay.
So as a part of this plan, though, while we have it up, and I don't want to belabor the point, but you could see here in this document that we had 140 to 160 independent living units and 28 assisted living units. That would have been C on the menu up there, or on the legend. So that went away in the 19 booklet. So even though that was a part of their original concept plan, their final concept plan did not feature those unit counts at all.
Okay. And so one of the questions for us this evening is how many senior, what was it? What was the phrase? Senior adult housing?
Senior living.
Senior living. And I don't, or senior housing. Isn't there some like federal housing regulation that defines that, though? Because I personally, I'm not in that space, my legal background, but I feel like I've heard of that before.
I believe HUD does have a definition for what senior housing is.
Because actually, I mean, my recollection is that if you don't comply with the federal statute, there are Fair Housing Act potential violations there. So my understanding was always that most of these senior housing units just follow that definition, so that way they're protected.
I would have to check that definition to see what it may be. I do believe there is a HUD one.
Okay.
But I don't have that definition in front of me. When it went to the Planning Commission, they set 55 and up for what senior housing actually means.
Right.
Because there's no way for us to assign numbers if we don't really know what senior housing is. So.
Right. I would just want us to obviously be consistent with the HUD, Fair Housing Act, whatever the governing in that is.
Avery, do you know that answer?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, well, let's make sure we have it. It is going to center around that 55 and up number, though.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure
Important.
our legal folks, make that clear for us. Okay, maybe you'll have it for us before we come back to regular session. Mr. Young.
Ron, this timeline that's shown in here, the 36 items, 1 through 28 are passed, the timeline is passed, but I don't think any of them have been done. So when will we see a new timeline?
The applicant may be able to answer that tonight. He has a representative and engineer that's actually going to be coming on his behalf. So I'd have to assign that to him.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Ron. We'll take this up in regular session, along with the public hearing. Okay, let's go to A4RA-07-21, parcel number V06-004-0139, 116 Reed Road, Inline Communities LLC of Atlanta, Georgia, has requested a rezoning of a 75-acre vacant parcel from single-family agricultural, which is AG, to single-family urban, R2. Council, does anyone have any questions for staff on this? All right, if there are no questions, Mr. Young, I'm sorry.
Ron, listening to the P&Z meeting, Mac Pilgrim asked who pinned the constitutional, what did it call this thing? Constitutional challenge. Who pinned that? I couldn't hear the answer.
It was their attorney, Joe Fowler.
Okay. Do we know the reason this was pinned?
From when it was explained at the Planning Commission meeting, it's standard practice for them to reserve rights by submitting that document. I get them pretty frequently in these different developments, but maybe the applicant may be able to give a little bit further, a more legal answer. But from what I understand, it's just to reserve certain rights as a part of filing for a rezoning.
And I can answer that. It is standard for any time an attorney is going to represent somebody before Planning Commission or before the council on a zoning matter, they'll file a reservation of rights because it's the only way to preserve their rights. If they get a denial to go forward and sue, if they don't submit that, then they would have no rights at that time.
All right, thank you, Avery.
Second question, I'm waiting for my screen to come up. In the document that Inline Communities provided, it says traffic patterns and future improvements on page 10 of the document. It is showing right in and right out at the private drive between Moe's and Bojangles. So are they proposing that they're going to use this private drive as an access point for their community?
Let me ask a question, though. Is that, Bobby, is that a private drive? Okay, we're
Between
talking-
Bojangles and Starbucks Mo's, those two buildings?
Yeah, I thought it was. Okay. So answer the question, if you know, Ron.
I believe you're talking about intersection 4, right? I'm sorry, I can't see.
Yes, he is talking about 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as intersection 4 is concerned, there appears to be some form of, there definitely will be a right-hand turn, left-hand turn, I'm sorry?
Does that impact it being a private drive? Should they even consider it if it's a private drive? Unless they've got an agreement with the property owners of the two adjacent places.
Yeah, that's a legal question I can't answer.
Well, it's also an applicant question. Let's take that up in the regular hearing, but be prepared for that, Avery. Because that is a concern if that is how, but now we also have an amendment to the conditions that impacts traffic, correct?
There is, yes.
Well, briefly describe that for us.
Sure. So there's 2 conditions that you'll notice on your cover sheet, number 2 and number 4, actually 2, 3, and 4, that deal with traffic. The first one would require for any recommendations that are found in this traffic report to be implemented. All of these different recommendations, and of course, Bobby Elliott would be taking a look at all of these recommendations. He already has taken a look at them. The third item that you see it just indicates the applicant must address the Reed Road, Tolbert Drive, and South Carroll Road intersections as well. So that would be in the form of a second traffic study that would need to be implemented specifically for that intersection. I know that there's a lot of traffic out there today. And the last one would be the developer would contribute no more than $1,500 per lot to the cost of these different traffic improvements. So that would include the traffic improvements outside of Tolbert Drive, as well as any others that are a part of that second study. So that would include South Carroll Road intersection.
Okay. All right, and that may address that, but I noticed it doesn't talk about number 4 specifically, and it probably shouldn't since that's a private drive. So I do think we need to address that in the regular session. Mr. Young?
The $1,500 per lot, that's under $300,000, and we don't know how bad the problem is going to be. We already know intersection 5 is bad, but we don't have any concept of what the mitigation will cost. So do we want to put a limit in there?
Well, the limit was based upon my discussions with the city engineer as well as Tom Barber, and we came up with the $1,500 based on some different estimates and different scenarios that we've talked about with the city engineer. So he felt comfortable with $1,500 as.
Yeah, but I don't feel comfortable with that because I don't understand the traffic study. And the traffic study really only talked about intersections 1 and 2. It didn't talk about 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I don't think we have a handle on what the mitigation would be. And again, the property owner has a right to do with his property, but if he's going to have a negative impact on the area around him, then he has an obligation to mitigate that negative impact, so.
I think mitigate
Okay.
it, but I'm sorry, you
Yeah,
ready?
Go ahead, Ms. McPherson.
Mitigate it is one thing, solving all our traffic issues is another. So I think we have to have some ownership in the fact that that's a bad area as it is. So I don't think it should all be put on the developer. Also, and just know when it gets put on the developer, and this is where you have to figure cost and everything is, where do you think that cost is going? So depending on how many restrictions, demands, we put on them. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't ask for certain things and maybe over and above in some areas, especially with traffic. When a particular thing is going to impact an area with traffic that does not exist now, or they're going to create more of it, then I certainly see where they could play into helping that be safer, calming. But it's going to be paid for by the people that buy those homes. So I think we have to remember that that's where that cost is going to be paid. So let's just have some balance in how much we think, oh, fix this, fix this, fix it. And those people now, those houses may not be affordable anymore. So that's got to be considered also.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions on this item? Mr. Barber?
Yeah, the conversation that we had specifically considered the fact that if the cost is greater than the $1,500, that the city would bear the difference. So we're not intending for the developer to pay 100% of whatever the suggested improvements are, nor are we on the hook to do all of them. You know, we're going to get the study and we're going to look at it, and then we're going to decide based on our budget and their contribution, you know, what do we do? And that'll be back on y'all. Y'all are going to decide.
So we should consider a 50% contribution rather than a hard number, or not, or not.
Well, I think we'll take that up when we get to discussion of approval of or denial. Okay. Anything else?
I'll just say,
Mr. Montana.
I met with these applicant owner developers, and we did go through, touch some on some additional conditions that are not in the staff report. And I'm looking through these, and they're in the packet, and they may need to be cleaned up even further than they were cleaned up. But I think the applicant owner developer have agreed to those conditions as well. And so if we move forward with this tonight, then we'll hopefully adopt those as well.
Tell me
Had questions
which
about
one that
those.
is, Matthew. Is that Reed Road proposed conditions clean 9/20/21?
Yes, that's those.
All right. That's for reference, council. If you want to go back and look at those, it's Reed Road proposed conditions clean 9.20.21. All right. Anything else? All right. Let's move on. We'll take this into regular session. A5, Liberty Point Unit 4 Final Plat. Is there any questions for staff on this one? All right, if there are no questions, we will move on. A6, VA-08-21. This applies to 352, 403, and 405 Jada Lane. I'm going to take all three of these at the same time. Any questions on A, 6, 7, or 8? Okay. Let's move on to A9, special exception, requesting an exemption to section 9.37H of the Billerica sign ordinance. Are there any questions for staff on this item? All right, hearing no questions, we'll move on to A10, special exception, request to modify the required 25-foot setback for a billboard. Are there any questions for staff now? Okay, we'll move on to A11. Amendment to Table 4.3, Permitted Uses Table contained in the City of Billerica zoning code. Any questions for Ron? All right, hearing no questions, let's move to the end of the agenda. I'm going to add an item here. I'm going to ask for consent. Let's see if I have it in front of me. The Billerica Lions Club, care of Clint Chance, has requested temporary signage for the Taste of Billerica event. I'm going to ask if you all will allow that to be consent item number 14 without objection. We do this regularly. It came about at the last minute this year. Clint asked me to add it. I had no problem with doing that.
They're basically banners that are put up that advertise the event.
The event, the city's Taste of Billerica. Are there any objections?
No objection.
All right. Without objection, I'll make that consent item number 14. Madam Clerk, would you add it? And here's a copy if you didn't have it. Okay. With that, let me review the consent agenda, and then we'll have an opportunity for public comment. All right. I'm going to read off these items I have for the consent agenda, and if you see anything different or have any questions, please wait until I finish. All right, consent number 1, Flowers Bakery driveway culvert design. Consent number 2, bathroom renovations at Gold Dust. Consent number 3, library after-hours meeting room use and fee schedule. Consent number 4, reconfiguration and upgrade of network infrastructure. Consent number 5, network room cleanup and network cable recertification at the police department and courtroom. Consent number 6, ratification of emergency purchase of supervisory control and data acquisition SCADA system for the water plant. Consent number 7, replacement of the Lake Cowan number 2 raw water pump. Consent number 8, concrete removal at the old West Plant site. Consent number 9, request approval of a 3-year proposal from Malden and Jenkins LLC to provide external audit and single audit services for fiscal years 21 through 23. Consent number 10, approve additional services with Paycom. Consent number 11, approval of second phase of professional services agreement with Gilbert, Harrell, Summerford, and Martin Law Firm. Consent number 12, Three Rivers Commission, Area Agency on Aging contract for services for fiscal year 23. Consent number 13, set dates for 2021 cleanup week. And consent number 14 is Taste of Billerica signage for the Billerica Lions Club. Does anybody see anything different? Okay. All right. I think I'm good with that. I will now open up the floor for public comment. Is there anybody here who would like to give public comment? All right. I'm going to call your name. Please keep your comments on a professional level. Will not accept comments that are considered by the chair to be of a personal attack on any individual or group of individuals. If you deviate from this protocol, you'll receive a warning from the chair. If you deviate a second time, you'll be leaving. Only one person speak at a time, and please, no comments from the audience, and only address your comments to the council, to the mayor and council. All right, first up, Brenda Knupp. Come on up here. If you will come to the podium, give us your name and address for the record, and then we'll give you 3 minutes.
Brenda Canup, 8934 Connors Road, Billerica. I'm in unincorporated Douglas County, and I will refrain from comments now because my issue was tabled.
Okay. Well, thank you. And it's Knupp. Canup. All right, I'll try to remember that. All right, Joe Fowler. I believe Joe hasn't learned when to sign in. All right, Mike Wester. You good? All right. And Casey Cagle. I didn't even see Casey. Okay. Oh, was he? Okay. All right, I've reached the end of the list. Is there anybody else here who would like to give public comment that did not sign in? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public comments for the work session. Tom, you have anything?
You want to do comments now?
Before we break? No. Sarah, do you have anything? All right.